Before I start reading, let me just say, as the author, Eugene, son of Douglas, I also know that my name in some Gaelic speaking countries could be spoken as Owen or Ewan. Moving on, I begin to read. Officer's Lounge, Captain's Log, Stardate 91019.4. Location, Officer's Lounge. As my first order of business as the new captain of the CX, I have currently set course for Starbase 9 to meet up with some technicians working on Project Gold Star. I walked into the officer's lounge and looked at the bar and was very surprised to see a very real likeness of the character from an old TV series. This must be the Guinan android which I had heard about. There was, however, another android ready to speak directly to me as I turned and looked. What was possible, he began saying, in the 21st century, as far as androids and such, had everything to do with artificial intelligence at that time, said Felix, the android, with the fleet rank of assistant on his collar. He began speaking to me. At that time, he continued, Assistant Felix, with one red pip on his collar and one silver beside it, the ideas regarding transference of thoughts was not yet thought of at that time. Now one could scribe pretty much on any object with a laser. Nowadays, we have directed audio so that one could literally look with an eye and point at the person, and the person would be able to hear what was being said, while others would not be able to hear it. To the humans living back in those days, all of this was like magic to them. Well, so too would space flight be, I said. By the way, I'm Captain Oliver Steinway. Too bad we have not reached the stage where that we may truly transport people and living animals, as some had thought in myth and fantasy, continued the assistant Felix. At least we have developed the ability to transport objects. This, of course, also allows us to replicate objects as well. So some of the wishful thinking did come true, I said. It is also notable to point out, said the android, that the Star Trek religion took off the way that it had, else much of these things may not have ever transpired the way that they had. Just in my communicator chirp. What is it? I said. You wanted to be notified when we were an hour away from Starbase 9, said the voice of the second in command. Thank you, number one. Felix, show me what kind of holodeck this ship has. We have an hour to kill. In the corridor, Felix, the android, and the captain exit the lounge and walk down this very same corridor. We have quite a few programs to run. Do you have any in particular that you would want to run in the holodeck, sir? Asked Felix. On my previous ship, we had one very interesting program, one about firefighting. However, I think that it was too involved for just this hour's time that we have, I said. I put my hands up and just said, let's just take a walk in the park. So entering the holodeck, the doors to the simulation area opened and we both walked into the green landscape with rolling hills and plenty of trees. We walked around in the simulated park for approximately 45 minutes. It's nearing the time, Captain, said Felix. We both exited the simulation into the corridor. Turbolift. Felix entered the turbolift ahead of me, and I stepped in behind and let the doors close. Bridge, I said. We made it to the main bridge. Felix took up a position near a console, and I went to the captain's chair. I looked at the main viewer and saw the approaching Starbase 9. There I saw at least two ships docked at the station. Felix, do you have the roster of the other ships and personnel involved in the operation? I asked. Indeed, sir, I do, said Felix. I also have the latest logs on the reported advancement of the computer virus. We should also remind you that as long as there is redundancy involved, there seems not to be too much of an issue unless you get too literal about your reports and data, said Felix. I glanced at the digital readout and then said, What are you saying? What do you mean, a virus? This is the first I've heard of this. I do not know why I said that, sir. I will need a full diagnostic on my systems, said Felix. Captain, said the executive officer, entering the bridge. I recognized Dan Fowler from the previous visit I had with him. Yes, number one, I said. I've been listening to your conversation as I exited the turbolift, and I have something to say on the issue. Go ahead, number one. We're listening, I said. Well, if one chooses their eyes and simply listens to if they close their eyes and they're simply listening, as if they were a blind person, maybe, one can pick up nuances and sounds in other senses like taste and touch. When reading text, there is often descriptiveness. I speak of punctuation and such things that seem to be necessary. The point is, actually, in the room, not reading text and seeing things visually, of course, or as I said, as a blind man listening only. There would be pauses, and it seems to be no problem because of the way a human mind translates it and deciphers the conversation. And also the activities when viewed with the eyes to be able to make sense out of the situation. You know full well that I am the one speaking because of my voice. However, there is no difference in the voice when an android or a person is scanning the images and speaking from what they see. And I add, if one human is reading all of the words on the screen. So when I speak of our text seen on a device and scanned when spoken back. I said, and what, I asked both of you, what does this have to do with the current situation of the virus in question? Felix said, it seems to be a rather political virus, if you ask me, meaning that it picks and chooses depending on some political view at times. At least the politics and the nature of what, when things about word spellings and the way the words are spoken. Captain, said the first officer, the way I look at it is that it is very likely artificial intelligence induced confusion. And I might add that it is nothing new. These same problems started way back in history. So you're saying that there's no real virus? No problem at all? Then number one? Well, said the first officer, I have my doubts, but I am no expert on the subject myself. I'm holding out for the possibility that there are other possible causes besides a virus. I shake my head. No. Well, number one, speaking of experts, we should consult those, and they are not here. They're on that station that we are looking at. It is my main role to transport the proper personnel where and when they need to be at a place in regards to the operation. And as you are my executive officer and Felix is one of my assistants, this is what we should be about, not being caught up in a debate over this. Also, as your captain, I have looked around this bridge and I noted some missing personnel. Tell me at the very least, report to me where my missing personnel are. That's the first thing. First, report to me about the missing personnel. Starting, I am to feel annoyed with your silence on the subject. Well, they're on the holodeck number 2, said Felix. Okay, could you say that again, Felix? I asked. They're on holiday, do you say? Captain, said Felix, there is a perfect example of the virus at work. I clearly said holodeck and you heard holiday? Well, I said, you need to take this up with the study group on the station. Only in regards to logs and such. But I'm speaking of is what you hear an android say in the very moment that he says it, said Felix. There's some kind of anomaly with thought transparency or transference operating. Ah, I said, I get your point. Do a diagnostic on yourself, as you said, and then go to the station and report to command over there about all this. Assistant Commander Green reporting for duty, sir, said the female that just got off the turbo lift. So what did I miss? Felix stood up and walked to where she was standing. Assistant Commander Green, what did I miss? Oh, I mean, reporting for duty. Captain, said Felix, I'm going now. I glanced at Felix and nodded, yes. Assistant Felix, android, take the information derived from your observations over there to Starbase 9 and let the appropriate investigators investigate. I've heard just about enough of this that I can stand. The only problem I can see is that if you go to the officer's lounge and order a specific drink, maybe a pina colada, I don't know, what else? And the bartender brings you back something else, but you did not ask for this drink. So, yes, that's a problem. Of course, if we're doing something in a lab, then yes, the problem can get really big, really very quickly, but I think we're mature enough to deal with the problem. Go now, Felix. You're dismissed. Felix exited the bridge. Indeed, said Executive Officer Danfeller, the best thing to do is a lab setting is to use proper equipment. And if that equipment being proper is an android that contains this virus and its system, and Captain, I stress my reservations and say, yes, the problem could be real and actually worth investigating. Number one, I said, maybe it's because of unstressed syllables and some other things. I'm tired of it. Let's move on. I got to my feet and started to walk out. Then I stopped and looked. You there, Green, was it? What's your role here? Assistant Commander Tabitha Green, reporting for duty. I am as yet unassigned official duty. This is only my first day. Well, Assistant Commander, you're in good company because this is my first day also, I said, continuing to walk away. Excuse me, sir, said Green. I stopped at the door. Walk with me, Commander Green. We both entered my office. Report, I said. Well, Captain, I heard you say something as if you used telepathy. Something to do with calling me a puppy? Well, I do not recall anything of the kind, I said. You're an assistant commander with a red pip on your. So you're clear to work on the bridge if you're on duty. Dismissed. She looked a little surprised and then turned and walked out the door. Captain's log. Stardate. In word code. Pot, stop, nap. Point 4. I have returned once again to using the word code for the date. We are waiting word from Starbase 9 and what we think will be an assignment for our next hop on our journey related to the operation known as Gold Star. I have assigned my assistant Felix Android to attend any meetings on Starbase 9 unless I am called personally. In the past, Starfleet Command has ordered that the SEAX be used for various missions, the primary one being transportation of various cargoes. Even when we have replication systems, the need for raw material remains a requirement until things change. This is our current mission. Commander Hawks, I said over the communication system, I need you to come to my office immediately in regards to the malfunctions on my logging system. Right away, Captain, said Georgina Hawks, the assistant commander and ship's engineer. Assistant Commander Georgina Hawks entered my office, the gold pip seen on her rank. After reset of the system, here's what happens, I said. Whenever I say the word CX, it does the same thing every time. It displays a letter C and a letter X. So the fix is not in. I will work on the replacement system, sir, said Hawks. If I do replace the system, however, there may be a few missing items, and I hope we can recover from that. I said, make it so, Commander. The ship's engineer exited my office. I got it from my desk, stood, and headed for the door. On the bridge once more. Number 1, you have the bridge, I said. Aye, sir. Officer's lounge. Next? Correct, I said, thinking to myself how that there seems to be a lot of mind reading going on around here. Back in the turbo lift. Deck 5, I said. The turbo lift would not move. Excuse me, I said Deck 5. That command is not understood, said the computer. Deck, as in level 5, I said. Understand, Deck 5, answered the computer. The car began to move in the turbo lift. Inside the shaft, it moved, of course. I shook my head in exasperation. In the corridor, I walked the remainder of the way to the officer's lounge, noting the very light foot traffic. Once again in the lounge, which seemed mostly empty, maybe one person over there possibly, I then stepped up to the bar. 1 pina colada. The Guinan android went for the drink as ordered. 1 pina colada coming up, said the android. I could not resist the urge, as this was a Guinan, so I asked for some advice. So can you advise me on what a captain should be doing on his first day? I'm not really her. I'm an android, she said. Okay, sorry for asking. I'll just drink my drink. You do your thing. Captain, said the Guinan android. It's a little bit worse than you think. I'm actually a hollow projection. See these hollow emitters around here? I'm not really here. Amazing how realistic it is, I said. I guess I'm lucky that the drink is halfway real when it gets here. Since you're the captain, said the droid, you could actually assign a real flesh and blood person to this job if you wanted to. That's a good point, I said. If I see the need, I may do just that. If I do keep you in this position, I suggest that you do not tell people that you're not real, that you let them figure it out. Try to make the experience real for them. I soon had my drink finished and headed for the door afterward. Back in the turbo lift. Excuse me, listeners. Take me to engineering, I said. The turbo lift took me to the correct level. Inside engineering, Assistant Commander Georgina Hawks was at her post. How goes it, Commander? I said. I think I've traced the problem to Starbase 9, actually. So that it seems they're doing something experimental over there related to this problem. The problem seems to be related to transference of waveforms that affect how some people think. So you're saying it is part of the thought transference equipment? I asked. Correct, Captain. See, Captain, I thought transference technology actually is a waveform from not for far removed from the technology of such things as radio waves. Bridge, this is the captain. Over. Bridge, go, Captain, came the voice of my executive officer. When you can safely do so, move us further away from the starbase. I will make it so, Captain, said the executive officer. I looked at the assistant commander and said, we will wait and see what the effect from the distance has to do with this problem, if any. Carry on. I departed the area and went back to the turbo lift. Take me to the bridge. Once on the bridge again. As I entered the bridge, my executive officer was speaking to the admiral on the view screen. Tell the captain to expect his assistant back on board within the hour and that you may leave. Excuse me, sir, what did I miss? I said. Commander Fowler turned to the admiral was just explaining that we're being given permission to proceed to Earth. Assistant Commander Felix Android is to explain the full details of the matter on his return. Very well, Admiral, I said, looking at the view screen. Captain, said the Admiral, next time I advise not sending an android. Was there a problem because of the android? I asked. The android will explain. Maybe. You see, the androids may be a part of the problem that we're dealing with, said the Admiral. Also, thought transference will be experimental only until further notice. You and your ship, the Sea-Axe, are cleared back to Earth. Dismissed. Screen went back to the view of the station. Number 1 set course for Earth. I'll be in my office. Captain's office. I heard the communication chirp. Captain, I'm back on board, said Felix, android. Proceed directly to my office, I said. A few minutes later. Well, Felix, I said, tell me what exactly is the problem. What was figured out? The thought transference equipment has been intermingling with androids in some interesting ways, leading to many of the problems of late. The solution seems to be to disengage the thought equipment. I will contact engineering unless you want me not to do so. You do that, Assistant Commander, I said. You're dismissed. And with that, the android exited my office. And that's the end of this episode, the first episode in this series, which I've been working on. And if you've seen the other videos on this, if they're still there and available, you will note they're shorter in length. So I think that that is probably because I had a text to audio reading it. What is better? Well, for one thing, be this what it is, this is the author of the work speaking, and it is fully a human operation. No artificial intelligence involved, except for some of the very poor translations on the screen which occurred during the voice to text operation whenever I recorded the story. End a message. It's not a message, really. End a video. Thanks for listening.